Hello, hello. A bit of a curveball here today. We're actually going to be doing a box opening for a different card game. This game is called Grand Archive. Its main unlimited first edition is coming out in about a month on April 28th. And, I'm going to be dabbling in it a little bit. I've placed an order for some unlimited. Going to be trying it out. Going to be doing some like webcam tournaments, that sort of thing. Just as a secondary game, just a change of pace. It plays a lot differently from Universes, so kind of fun to bounce off to something else every once in a while. I think a lot of you probably play multiple games, you know how it is. So yeah, I'm be checking that out. I'll be talking a little bit about, how the game works and why it appeals to me as we go. Most of the, if you're from the Grand Archive crowd watching this, most of my audience is obviously going to be from Universes, the MHA CCG, so I'm talking to them a lot, so some of this may be a lot of redundant for you, but you have to watch me rip some packs and you'll actually know what some of these cards are. But yeah, so the bulk of my order is the Unlimited Edition, but I decided to be a bit of a card game gremlin, a bit of a gambler for one box worth of first edition. So I tracked one down. I found a store I used to go to a lot, X9 Games, which is actually in the oldest video of my channel that you may have gotten on your feed at some point. That one match on there actually took place at X9 Games. But they were on the store list as having some Grand Archive first edition products, so I reached out to them. They were cool enough to, work out an online sale. They don't normally do online sales and ship me a box. So that was neat of them. Thanks to them. Shoutouts to them. And yeah, without further ado, we'll start opening this box. It's actually a pretty nice box, pretty good material. These boxes come with 24 packs. The packs have 12 cards in them. I haven't... So this is, aside from a little starter kit I picked up off of Ryan Field, this is the first stuff from this game that I've opened. And if I want to do anything that's like a actual webcam tournament or whatever before the full launch, if it's just this Kickstarter first edition stuff, this is pretty much all I'm going to have to work with. So I have some genuine interest in opening some good stuff here. So first things first, we have this little a box topper pack of some kind. All right, I realized that I do not know how to open these particular plastic cases. I should have gotten some scissors, but let's get that open over here. A little bit off screen because I'm using nail clippers to open this bag and it's a little bit weird. But I don't know what else is in here actually. Like, I actually don't know. So there's obviously going to be the first three starting spirits. Oh, two of each. Okay, that makes sense. So this is a champion-based game, and in this game, your champions level up as the game goes on, and your first one is going to basically be choosing an element for your deck. So you can have a wind deck, a water deck, or a fire deck, and depending on which level 0 champion you choose, that's going to allow you to play cards of that element, basically. And you can see champions have a health total down here. This will go up over the course of the game, so you track the amount of damage you've taken, not how much health you have left. And all of them say on enter draw 7 cards, which is basically say when you start the game, you'll draw 7 cards on your first turn. So yeah, so these are just on top of the deck because the game is literally unplayable if you don't have one of these. It's sort of like a character in Universes, but this is the level 0 version of the character. You cannot start the game without one of these, so they just put them on top of the booster boxes. Obviously, you get them with the starter decks too. Let's just set those aside. All right, and so here's a booster pack. So this is one of their champions, Xander, on here. On the back of the pack, they have the rarity distribution of like the number of each type of card in the set. And every card has a normal version and a foil version. The higher rarities are not always foil in this game. They want to make their special foil cards sort of more valuable, so they make their normal rare, even their ultra rares are normally non-foils. And then you see they have this special collector ultra rare rarity, which is the same idea but slightly different version. In the Kickstarter version, these are serialized cards. In the full release, they're not going to be serialized because obviously it's an unlimited print run, but it's going to be the same kind of rarity. Yeah, let's see what we have here. So obviously, that's in terms of gambling, that's kind of what we're hoping to pull here. If you get a CUR, which is about 1 in 15 boxes, you're in pretty good shape. So these packs do have a tear tab, which is nice. So here's a level 3 champion. Here's the guy. Here's Xander, his level 3 version. I'm just gonna sort of look at some of the cards and the frames, and you can see the art takes up a pretty good amount of the real estate, which is nice. You can see the text boxes are kept relatively simple, which is also, you know, welcome. As I said, it's a lot different from Universe. It's a little more, it feels more lightweight, but it's still strategically interesting, right? So I have some different types of cards here. And then we have a super rare in this called Ravaging Tempest. It's a big windstorm here. So all these cards, except for this one, have this yellow cost in the top left. And try to maybe talk about one mechanic per pack, and it makes sense to start with how you play cards in this game. So you see these flat costs, and the way costs are played in this game, you don't have lands or energy equivalent. You don't like put cards down one per turn and then tap them or anything like that. What you actually do is, if you want to pay a cost of 2, you take 2 cards from your hand and you basically set them aside into a zone called your memory. And this is like temporarily reserving those cards to pay this cost. So you need to have 3 cards in your hand to play this card. You need the 2 that you set aside and then this card itself, right? And so this card costs 5. So you would need to have 6 cards in your hand to play this card. And then, you know, once you play that card, you've lost that card, and you're going to draw your 1 card per turn. So unlike, you know, sort of a traditional game where you're trying to be, you know, really cost efficient, like, okay, I have 3 energy to use this turn, I should spend all 3. It's really not like that in this game. It's much more about, you know, maintaining a certain number of cards available in your hand. I should clarify, after you set those cards aside, they come back at the start of your next turn. So that sort of maximizes what you can do per round, but you're not losing those cards permanently yet. So you could try to like maximize, you know, your bang for the buck, you know, using all the cards in your hand each round, but you're probably just going to card starve yourself over time doing that, because you're just going to have less and less cards to work with, right? So it's very interesting. Plays much more like a cash flow board game kind of deal, where, you know, as compared to, let's say, Universus is a risk assessment costing system, and maybe something like, you know, a Magic or whatever is more of an efficiency costing system where you're trying to make the most out of the lands you have available each round. This is much more about trying to do useful things and progress your board state while still maintaining an amount of cards available to you that you can still operate and keep doing stuff, right? So it's a bit of a balancing act in that regard, and that's one of the really interesting things about this game. Alright, this second pack here, we have Sylvie on it. This is their Tamer class, so there's 4 classes of champion in this game. There are going to be 7, there are 4 to start. And if you were looking at maybe some of those text boxes before, you probably saw the word class bonus a lot, and those are... don't literally lock a card to a specific class, but they mean if you play the card in a different class, then you're gonna lose that bonus. There's a different champion card, Lorraine. We have Wind Cutter, Ornamental Greatsword. So these are commons. I believe there's, 9 commons per pack. And if there's a foil or something, it replaces a common, I believe. A Meadowbloom Dryad. So you'll notice this has the Terra element, which is not wind, fire, or water. A Silverback, and a Hurricane Sweep, a wind card. So I believe we got Xander here. So the other thing going on in this game is that you have 2 decks. So you have your main deck of 60 cards, and then you have what they call your Materialized deck, which is a stack of up to 12 one-ofs. And before you pick up those cards you use to pay your other costs each turn, you can remove a number of them from the game at random. Right, so it's very costly. You're permanently losing a card and you don't have complete control over what it is. But when you do that, you go through your Materialized deck and pick 1 card and play it. So you see a lot of these, you know, these cards cost 0. There's a bunch of cards coming out of Materialized deck that cost 0, so you don't give up a card to play them. But there are some that cost 1, some that cost more, and your champions, you'll see under the level 1, there's a 1 cost here. So if you want to go from your level 0 Spirit to your level 1 Lorraine, when you pull her out of your materialized deck during that phase, you have to banish a random card that you used to pay for a cost earlier. So you're net -1 card, but you have complete control over your materialized deck. You look through it, you pick one of your 12 cards that you want to play this turn. So there's nothing random at all about leveling up your champion. It's just when you decide that you want to pay that cost and do it and get that trigger and whatever else is going on. You see she has 20 health instead of the 15. And so, speaking of which champions and third elements, when we grab the Xander from the last pack, you'll notice he has this Luxem element, which again is not air, not wind, fire, or water. I may have said earth earlier, but anyway, so when you get to level 3 with Xander, now you can start playing these Luxem cards. Right, so you might have, so this Terra is Sylvie's third level element. So you could have these Terra cards in your deck and not be able to play them all game until you get to level 3. And that's fine, because you can still just use them to pay costs, right? You can still just put them face down, possibly banish them to your materialized deck costs. So most decks will have a certain number of these cards that they can't play until late game, and naturally, they are much more powerful, right, than other cards. So, you know, one of the interesting features of this game is that the design of the cards and the power levels is very much slanted towards that end game. Each class or each advanced element kind of has its own endgame mechanism for how it's going to close out the game. And really the way it's situated is that for most of the game, until you hit that level 3, you're kind of just, you're jockeying for position, trying to maintain your card flow, trying to get some little advantages, maybe make some progress against your opponent's life total. But in the grand scheme of things, you're trying to get to that level 3, get to that end game, and then, you know, have that face off from whatever position you've gotten in against, you know, what your opponent's deck is doing. So it's not, you know, you can have decks that are trying to be, you know, faster at that or slower at that or whatever, or they're more willing to throw cards away or be a little inefficient. And those will be your more aggressive decks or whatnot. But, you know, by and large, you're not looking at a game where you're going to get brutally axe murdered on turn 2 or 3. You know, because the cards fell the wrong way. There's some super god draw wombo combos out there, I'm sure, but for the most part, this is a very late game focused game, which, you know, again, if I'm going to play a secondary card game, I might as well play something that's as different from my main one as possible, right? So we're going through here. Okay, no fancy. I have a Warrior's Longsword, so we have 2 uncommons per pack. And I'm getting just mono wind rares, so this is a super rare called Beseech the Winds. This lets you materialize card from that material deck, that deck of 12 cards. Normally you can only pull 1 per round, but this one, if you pay your cost of 3, and then you still have to pay, you know, that banishment cost, you get to accelerate that a bit and play something a bit early mid-turn, which is kind of a neat card. Now, the foils in this game are about 1 per 8 packs, and the packs within a box distribution in this first edition is very, very random, right? It's not like you're not particularly guaranteed to get a certain number of super or ultra rares in a given box. They're working on making that a little more controlled because it's really wild in this first one, so we're not going to really know anything about the future contents of this box as we go. We're just going to have to see what we get. Alright, we got some. Hey, here's a fire card. Uncommon. Spirit Blade Ascension. So this is Crux. This is Lorraine's level 3 element. And we have some other cards, so we should talk some card types, right? So we have the champion card type, which is the way you would expect it to be. It has your health on it, has some effects. Also do these. This is an ally card type. This is your creature equivalent, right? This game has creatures because, of course, it is. We're doing something very different here. Creatures have a power and a health, and this works magic style, where a creature has to take its health and damage over the course of a turn to die. And creature combat in this game is full. You decide what your creature is attacking, so you can attack the opponent, you can attack one of their creatures, and if they want their creature to deal damage back, they have to commit it, rest it, tap it. It's called rest in this game to deal damage back, and there's the only way to have one creature sort of step in the way of an attack is if it's an attack on a champion. A creature with the intercept ability can step in. So this Crusader of Asa, for instance, has that intercept ability. So because, you know, if your creature's rested, someone can just kind of attack it for free without getting retaliated against, and you can possibly just lose a card. The health value on creatures has, you know, really a pretty high importance in this game, maybe relative to some other games, because that sort of determines how easy it is to just kind of pick off for free and you just kind of net lose a card. But, you know, by the same token, if you play a creature out of your hand, well, that's one less card you're going to get to use to pay for stuff later. That's messing with your card flow, right? So you really want the damage that you're going to be able to do with this to your opponent to be worth it. So there's a lot of allies in this game are like 1 power 3 health, and so they're good at sticking around, but you have to evaluate whether their effects are worth, you know, sort of losing that card from your hand when it's only going to do so much damage to your opponent overall. Hey, here's Rai. Here's the... Guess we haven't seen a Sylvie card yet, but this is the third main champion. Is this mage dude? He's one of the starter decks. Respawn Ears Drown Cut. Also, we have an attack to talk about here. Tristan. So there are some champions in this game called Lineage Break champions that are not part of your level 1, 2, 3. They're level 2, each of them, and you still play them off of the level 1, but they have no level 3. Instead, they have maybe stronger level 2 abilities with some sort of scaling in them, ideally, because if you don't have your level 3, you don't have a level 3 element, you don't have a late game. You don't have that like built-in late game. So a lot of these level 2 champions have some sort of extra scaling in them that's supposed to help them overcome that. Then we have Mist Resonance. Alright, that's cool. This is a card I will be happy if I get a bunch of, so it's good to see that. So this is an action card. This is, you know, as you would expect, they're cards you just kind of play from your hand that do a thing and then go away. They will all have this fast or slow speed, which, you know, do you play them at basically instant speed, or do you play them at basically sorcery speed, to use Magic terms? This game does use a stack, much like Magic, has some, you know, specific times where both players get a chance to play fast effects, but otherwise you just open up the stack when something's played or triggered. And yeah, so this one's kind of cool because if you do a combo with it, it lets your allies attack with do their health stat and damage instead of their attack stat and damage for that turn, which you can imagine if you're playing a bunch of those 1-3, 1-4 guys, can be a pretty big swing. But that is a tamer only effect, right? And you have to play a different kind of card called there's a mechanic called Harmonize, where you have to play a melody and a harmony in the same turn, which takes those 2 cards on top of the cost of those cards, so it's pretty expensive. And, you know, balance-wise, this is... You know, I don't want to oversell it too much. This is the first set in a 1-set format with the first set of a brand new card game, so there are some things that are maybe a little undertuned, some things that are maybe a little overtuned, but overall, just by sort of reading the tea leaves of the, like, you know, 50 or however many people that are really tryharding this game pre-release and having, like, print and play tournaments and stuff like that, it seems like there's a new quote-unquote boogeyman deck every other week, and they haven't really settled into any sort of clear, this is obviously the best stuff meta, so that's a pretty good sign so far. Alright, we have a Rare Storm Tyrants out here. Alright, I haven't opened 8 packs yet, so I shouldn't be, like, sitting here expecting to see my first foil or something, but I would feel good about seeing my first foil and get that out of the way here, right? I believe there's only one other... Well, I guess there's some materialized deck card types to talk about too, but we'll talk about attack cards once we see one. Here we have more Xander. Stillwater, Gale, Trippin' Highwayman, that's a good one. Creative Shock's a really big card. Cemetery of Sentry is a rare. I don't actually know the rarity of all these cards. I mean, I've played a few like online TTS matches. I haven't actually played that much. I've enjoyed the games I've played so far for sure. But I you know, something like rarity doesn't really strike you when you're building TTS decks, right? It's not until you're opening the packs you're like, oh, okay. Alright, Channel Lumen, that's some pretty nice art there. See how there's an attack, okay. Talk about that in a moment. Secret Page card's pretty funny. It gets stronger if you choose not to materialize anything, which you will not often do, but I've played games where you actually get through your whole 12 card materialize deck and still have turns after that, so it does come up. Amulet. Erratic Bolt. Alright, this is not water, this is arcane. This is Rise level 3 element. That is, so... And just to double down on the whole late game focus thing, so Rai is a starter deck, and Rai's design is basically that he's trying to get really not interested in like doing damage with creatures or anything at all in the early game. He doesn't really care if he doesn't touch your opponent at all. He doesn't care if he takes some damage early. He's just trying to get to his late game state where he has a bunch of effects that will ramp up his numerical level, and then he gets to use that to do these giant level scaling damage to the face spells, and he'll just like lob an 11 damage spell at your opponent once or twice and end the game that way. So it's really just, it's a starter deck too. It's a starter deck that's just completely selling out to a long game. And it's just very striking to see that, especially in a new game like this, that it's just from the outset, they're like, yeah, we want this to be a thing. All right, I lied about, I missed the one last. So this is the third main in your deck card type are attack cards. And these allow your champion to attack directly. So you'd play one of these, you'd commit, rest, tap your champion, and you do that much damage to whatever you're attacking, and it can retaliate back at you. And this allows... This gives you a conduit to deal some attack damage even if you haven't been able to stick an ally, and sort of lets you have some from-hand attack capacity, you know, again, that isn't strictly ally-based. It gives you a different route to get that done. And the Lorraine character, sort of the one on top of the box, oh, here she is here, is based on using these attack cards a lot. It is sort of the main theme of the warrior class type. And since there's only one, well, there's the champions and then there's the lineage break champions. There's 2 champions of each class type. But warriors and Lorraine like to play a bunch of attack cards. So for instance, this spell makes one of your sword weapons stronger and lets you draw a card for attacking, for instance. And you know, as you might imagine, you know, we're talking about card flow. It's a draw 1 card per turn game, so it is very, 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 very much circled around card advantage. Like, card advantage is absolutely everything in this game. I'm sure someone's going to say, well, you know, this is, but it is so core to this game, and what's nice is that the card design's not pretending that it's not. It's very clearly knows what it's about. And so the cards are tuned where, you know, anything that is card disadvantage is you know, relatively powerful. Anything like, here's a stupid 0/1 body that can intercept and just draws a card when it dies, because, you know, you'd never play a card like this if it wasn't going to get you a card out of it. So it has that going on as it's doing that right. There's another mechanic we'll see at some point. Oh, here's another Beseech the Winds. 2 Beseech the Winds, that's pretty cool. There's a mechanic called Floating Memory. I probably should have checked for it on those cards. That's also a pretty big deal in this game. Hey, here's a Sylvie. The Sylvie level 2. So Sylvie's the Tamer class. The Tamer class wants to play a bunch of animals and beasts, pretty much. So they're the class that's trying to get the most done with its on-field allies. And here's a Floating Memory card. So Floating Memory is a mechanic where if a card's in your graveyard, in your discard pile, and you have to materialize something, you have to do that, remove a random card from your memory cost, you can instead RFG that card, banish that card from your discard pile from your graveyard. And this nets you cards, if provided you're paying those memory costs, right? So long as you have some of those to pay, then these Floating Memories are all +1 card. They all save you a card. So in addition to just like cantrips, this is another form of pseudo cantrip that you'll see decks playing a bunch of these, and even trying to find ways to mill themselves, right, to get some of these into their graveyard. Smack with Flute. Some of Sylvie's art is very lighthearted and comical. This attack is just hitting things with Flute. It's great. Inspiring Call, Ace, Excalibur, Cleansing Light. Very fancy art there. not be doing great in this box. I'm skipping over talking about actual weapon cards themselves. I'm just kind of assuming that I'm going to run into one in most packs. Another Xander. So Xander's level 2. Dusty Steed. Some more commons. Sudden Steel. This is a big beefy attack. You see this does 5 damage. And it costs 6, but efficiency says it costs less equal to your levels. So this is another one of those, like, in the late game, I can very easily do this kind of giant swing. Ooh, water bauble. Disintegrates are rare. Okay. Don't think there were any weapons in here for us. Nope. Alright. This is just about the halfway point here. Not doing too good on our gambling here, but we're getting to look at some cool cards, so that's fine. And we're going to hit a string of like no weapons for me to talk about for a little while here. Oblivion, Sword Seek, Invoke Dominus. Sink into Oblivion's a card I'm sure I've seen others that this has an alt art available. One of the other promising things about this game is even though it's a Kickstarted game, it was kickstarted to the tune of just under $1 million, which is pretty high for a Kickstarted card game. I think only a couple others have gotten that much. So they're pretty well financed, and team's 6-ish people. And considering it's a 6-person team that's kind of doing their first card game, and you know, we know how that goes, and you know, the first set had a production delay and things like that. They are really like astoundingly competent. They have a useful website, which you know is a sticking point of mine. You know, they have a functional website as a card database with an API, and it's nice to look at and easy to find information on. You know, I'll link to it obviously, and some learn the game links in there. And they're, when you see them talk about the game, is that they have a comprehensive rulebook already. They're not. I've seen some other games wait until like 4 sets in to write their comprehensive rulebook. They're working on that already out of the gates. They have a local organized play plan that seems reasonable. It doesn't rely on mechanical uniques. They have these prize packs that are more likely to contain a foil, and because they have this system where foils are a big deal. See, I haven't even opened a foil card yet. That's actually a valuable prize, and there are even some high collector rarity cards that can only come in those prize packs that are all also alt arts and stuff. Rules Bubble Mage, kind of a nice art. Channeling Stones are rare. We have a weapon. We have a weapon. Okay. So these weapons are another type of card that let your champion attack, and these come from your materialized deck. So if you want to make sure your champion's going to have chances to attack, you want to put some weapons in. And there's mostly, this is an assassin weapon. There's assassin warriors are doing most of this, and each weapon has a durability count, which is the number of times you're allowed to attack with it before it's just gone, and then an attack damage. So it lets you do a little bit of work with your champion. Some of them have mechanics that let you do more damage with them, and when you use a from-hand attack card, you can also buddy up with a weapon there to add the damage together if you need to do a little bit more. Alright, we're getting low here. And so, that local organized play plan looks pretty good. They say they've got a little over 500 stores that are ordering the Unlimited Edition. That's worldwide. They're working on a store finder. They've got one that has all the stores that did the Kickstarter, but they're working on. They want to get stores permission. I think I finally see a foil here. Fairy Witch, Seafaring, Veteran. Ooh, a foil Deflecting Edge. This is a pretty popular card. This is a nice card to get in foil. You see these foils? Looks like it's mostly a flat foil. There's a little bit of patterning to this actually. That's pretty nice. Set that aside here. Cry for Help, Spontaneous, Frozen Nova. Merlin's art's so good. This is a character called Merlin. Let me just sleeve this guy here. There we go. Deflecting Edge. So yeah, and they're planning. So they're doing a lot to try to support, online. Right now, TTS, but I'm sure there'll be webcam terms. They're actually holding a tournament in April that's going to be on TTS, but they're going to have physical card, like prove that you actually own these cards. I don't think that's going to scale. You probably can't run an event like that with 300 people, but they're going to try to do that just so you don't have to worry about people's webcam quality and things like that for this a sort of pre-launch event. Hey, here's Merlin herself. Another one of those lineage break champions. Banner Knight. There's the regular deflecting edge. Bunnies. More Bubble Mage and Majestic Spirit Crest. All right, this is their highest rarity. It's very backwards for us Universes players. The highest rarity is UR, that's ultra rare, and the SR is their version of our ultra rares. And their ultra rares are our version of secret rares. These are about 1 per box. So this is a Lorraine level 3 card that basically gives her gives her an extra card. And that's kind of the funny thing, like these cards that are just 0 cost and come out of your materialized deck and just get you an extra card are very valuable effects in this game, because the card flow, card advantage stuff is just that important. There's even a card called Grand Crusader's Ring, which I'm assuming I'm not going to open at this point, which I might, but because just because I opened the 1 Ultra doesn't mean I won't open the second with the way these boxes are distributed. But that card is literally just 0 cost, banish it to draw a card. And it even has a special keyword that says you're only allowed to play 1 card with that keyword in your deck, so I guess each set's going to have some other form of, special extra powerful materialized deck card that you have to choose whether you want to play the Crusader's Ring or that. But for now, literally every deck's going to have 1 Grand Crusader's Ring in it. And it's sort of designed to be that way, too. Chanting Squirrels, another Ravening Tempest here. Yeah, so in any event, the organized play is mostly large events are mostly going to be online until they are planning their first in-person organized play event to be in Houston in late summer, early fall. They need to see like how many players they're actually having at local stores and things like that before they figure out the size of this. They also need that to do that sort of pulse check to figure out how big of a second print run to do, because their first print run of Unlimited's already sold out. They know they need to do a second wave, but they need to they don't know how big to make it. So it's a bit of wait and see there. But my understanding is you can still get Unlimited in North America. In Europe, the distributors there are all empty. I'm not sure about Oceania, but the game has a pretty big Oceania scene right now. As, relatively, it seems like. Okay, we have another foil in here. I love how I'm getting this foil peak here. Blissful Calling, Stillwater, Cess Ripper. Ooh, okay, we have foil Creative Shock. We'll take those. Very nice. Oh, it's even got a little symbol down here. I hadn't noticed that before. Oh, that is a nice looking card. Melodious Flute, Water Resonance, Tactful Sergeant. Tactful Sergeant's a rare. Okay. Or Alright, so, our foils have been commons and uncommons, but they have been the good ones. Where did I put my sleeves? Oh, I've buried my stack of sleeves. That's why. There we go. So does Deflecting Edge have a little symbol on it? No, I think it's just because this is a fire card. It's got that little symbol on it. Neat. Pretty. Yeah, both Deflecting Edge and Creative Shock both seem to be very highly played cards early on. Again, it's not like our meta's really developed for this game. It's that once it gets out to the broader audience, you're probably going to see it, even though it's going to be a 1-set format. You're probably going to see some deck ideas and some angles that the few dozen early adopters haven't really found yet. But within that early crowd, Deflecting and Creative Shock seem to be very popular cards. Again, not that I'm super active in it. I'm kind of just reading the Discord here and there and watching some YouTube videos and whatnot, but Camelot, Impenetrable. So another thing to talk about. So this is sort of a weird card type that you kind of want to play after you're done materializing cards for the game, and they give you different effects. It's called a domain. They're unique. Unique in this game means what you think is you only have one of this out. But these cards are full art in this first edition. They are more regular framed in the altar, and that's part of. There's a whole mix of differences between the first and altar that I think they've done a pretty good job of making altar edition fairly desirable. Like, I'm perfectly happy to have altar edition as my main order for this game. They have a bunch of upgraded art in altar. They have like I said before, the collector level rarity is a bit different, but it's a different group of cards that have that rarity too. So you can't get, for instance, a collector rarity Merlin in the first edition. That doesn't exist. That's only in the altar edition, even though it's not serialized, but it's still the only way to get one. Rye hairs, winds, Ray Sparkle Light, more Deep Sea Dagger, Rogue, hey, second Camelot, and back-to-back packs Camelot. And there's also, they mentioned there's like 20 or so arts that are upgraded, and there's even a handful of cards that they added to the Ultra Edition based on like early feedback from people playing the Kickstarter, playing decks with the Kickstarter edition, just try to rebalance some things. So they're kind of on top of stuff on that front. Like I said, the team seems broadly competent given the circumstances. And they've already announced their soul. Ignite the Soul. Oh, we really are getting the good ones. Virgin Flame, regular Creative Shock, and a Spell Shield Arcane. Nice, nice, nice. Oil Ignite the Soul. There's our last pack here. But yeah, I was saying they've already announced their second set release, so they've got that part right. This isn't going to be a one and done. They're supposedly planning up to 5 sets, and I know to Universe's player that is a huge meme, right? We've heard Jasco has falsely claimed that they were working on sets that they were not actually working on. But these guys aren't Jasco. They're probably being truthful. And they've announced an August release window for their second set. And so looking forward to that. It'll be, even just in my early deck building, it'll clearly help to get this from being a 1-set format to a 2-set format, right? Insight Mind Freeze, Oscar, Rending Flames. Oh, that's a rare. Rending Flames are very big. If somebody's going to die like super early in the game, it's probably because of this card. Fire has, just like it does Universe's, Fire has a cards in graveyard mechanic, and this lets you do double damage with an attack if you've gotten a few fire cards in there. So even if you don't have level 3 stuff, you can get an attack up to pretty big with this guy. And is one of the... That fire graveyard mechanic's one of the things that's maybe a little overtuned, but that's was sort of targeted out in some of the cards that they added as well. Those altar cards that they added. So yeah, so this is our first box here of Grand Archive. I hope it not too bothersome to the Universe's players to have this other thing on this channel. I don't necessarily plan on making lots of Grand Archive videos or anything. Maybe if by some outside chance I do well in a tournament somehow at some point and there's a reason to do a deck profile or something, I might do that. So kind of want to get this on there just so that if I do anything, it's not completely random and out of nowhere, Yeah, pretty interesting game. Yeah, I'm gonna try it out for a little while, see how it goes. Give it these first couple sets, give it 6 months, that kind of deal, and I've been having fun so far. And we got some three, not super rare foil cards, but 3 pretty highly played foil cards. So pretty cool to see that. All right, until next time, have a good night.